Alrighty. Hello everybody. This is Kirsho here, and now, before I do begin, let me go ahead and give a brief little review. In the last part, we had a number of events happening. Deku and the Vault Dwellers, they have been getting things prepared. Deku murdered Kaisar at the fort, and knowing that the Legion would not take kindly to this, they have increased their timeline in order to take on the Legion. Now, Deku, he had a multitude of ideas as to how to handle the situation, but the one he does currently find himself in is very interesting. They had a team who were heading into Arizona who would take on the Legion and slowly but surely wear down their forces. It was an attempt to make sure the Legion, they arrive exhausted and with morale lowered. Legate Lanius, however, he kept on charging. He kept on making his way into Nevada. Whenever he finally met Deku, who was at the Legionary encampment, he was highly intrigued to discover this was the Deathglow Man. The stories he heard about him and the rumors, some that were said to be over-exaggerated, turned out to be real. Stories mentioned a man in Arizona who rode a Deathclaw, a man who was of monsters and beasts, a person who went through their territories and left a lot of death behind in his wake, a man who can go unseen, and of a woman with a sonic voice. They encountered a creature with the same type of sonic voice. And when they finally saw Deku, when the legate met him, Deku transformed. The man, he is willing to die for the Legion. He worships the god of war. As long as he does die in battle, he will conquer in the name of Kaisar. It doesn't matter if it's from beyond the grave. It doesn't really seem to care. He heard about the attack on Flagstaff. He doesn't care about that. He cares about conquest. He cares about subduing everyone under his blade until the day he dies. And he challenged Deku to a one-on-one battle. If he manages to take him out, the Legion will withdraw, go back into Arizona, and one day, hopefully, they will be able to raise a force to conquer the West. Though, with the fact that this man is of monster, he's not too sure. The god of war may have put Deku in his path as a final test before taking the West. If he does fail this test, it will be up to the Legion to decide what to do. Deku's a monster. One the legate cannot wait to face, and Deku, he's highly intrigued about the legate. He's encountered a number of people up here who are strange, but this man, he might actually be a natural-born mutant. Nearly 7 foot tall, bigger and stronger than him, from what the looks of his body do indicate, but without FEV exposure. He's heavily covered in armor and does have a massive blade he's wielding. Meanwhile, he doesn't have an ounce of armor and is unarmed, and the two are ready to do battle. Izuku, he does feel his blood pumping in his veins, highly intrigued. And Sam, he is there to make sure the fight is still fair. And that does mean a bit. Deku, he dropped his belt to the dirt, and he stepped forward. Sam, he did begin to shrink down. Whenever he did so, he stepped forward and grabbed the belt, him radioing in, talking about the current situation. Right now, he does need them to understand. All forces on standby. He does want a small squad here to bring him a pair of clothes and to come see what's going to be happening. The Legion force is on standby, but the legate has challenged Izuku to a brawl. This may decide the fate of Hoover Dam. And he doesn't wait. Him hearing a number of responses back, all trying to jumble over each other. Him going to talk about how, one at a time, whoever is directly second, now, report in. Is that confirmed? Yes, it is confirmed. Right now, I need some pants if I'm going to watch this go down. Besides, I don't think any of these guys are willing to go up against this guy. Deku and the man staring each other down. He does draw his weapon, quite intrigued about what will be happening. And Deku can't deny himself, this does feel a little familiar. Let the animal out of its cage to hunt. This might be the biggest prey he's ever had to catch. And that's something that Deku does find intriguing. Him asking the man if he does want him to go all out, or does he want him to hold back the monster? Do as you will. Either way, you will fall against my blade, or I will fall against your claws. Whichever way the wind is going to blow. Poetic. Unexpected, but poetic. Fine. Him gesturing around, asking if one of them will give the signal. And for some people to go come that whenever some people do come walking up, a number of them do to steer the situation. Him turning back to his people and going to talk about it. Someone give him a go ahead. And there is where Evelyn, she does raise her hand and just shout, "Fight already, idiots!" And Deku, he does a turn as the legate does a blast forwards and he does get ready. The man swinging his massive blade and trying to strike it down on Deku. And Deku does a dodge to the left and bring up a fist, smashing the man in his body armor, and going to watch what does to happen. The man turning his blade and trying to knock it backwards against Deku. Deku, bringing up his arm as the flat side, does crash against his forearm. And he does a stagger backwards, alarmed by the man's actual strength. Him going to rebalance himself out and turn. Before the legate does come towards him, and he does go to mutate his hands, and they do go to elongate and change. Claws coming up and slashing at the man, who does go to try and pull himself back to stop his momentum. Him staggering as he does try to pull back his attack. It slashing against the man's blade as he does go to bring up his left hand and throw it a punch at Deku. And Deku, he does go to be struck. Him being struck across the jaw as he does a slash up. Him sparking against the man's armor with his claws as he does bring up his right hand. Slashing out and trying to cut into the man's leg. It raking against his armor as he does go to move backwards. And this, it does mean something. Deku going to spit out a mouthful of blood as the legate does come back at him. Right now, him backing away and then going to lunge forwards. Rushing the legate, who does go to bring up his sword. Holding it outwards as Deku, he does a turn. Him going to shift and go to begin changing into a Deathclaw. Him battering the man's arms with his tail as he does go to turn back, throwing out his elongated arm that does come out. I mean, whenever he does it to grab the legate by his right arm, he does it a pull. Right now, the man being alarmed and he's pulled off of his feet and up into the air. Deku spinning him over his shoulder and crashing him down into the sand. And the man, he does go to lay there. Deku going to bring up his foot and crash it down into the man's back with his armor still on. And he does begin to start to pull. The legate roaring out in pain as he does go to bring his other arm down, grabbing towards his side. Pulling his gun and going to aim it upwards, firing it directly into Deku's face. And Deku, he does go to bring his other hand up to block the rounds. Right now, him going to back away as the man does get back to his feet. His arm does hurt, but he does aim the weapon upwards, blasting out towards Deku's eyes and trying to blind him. And Deku, he does go to bring his claws up to block the weapon. Right now, him rushing forwards and going directly for his blade. He's fought a Deathclaw before. He knows to go for the underbelly. If he can get a blade there, he can go for the heart. Go for a powerful strike. And Deku, he does it to come in. Right now, him bearing down the man with intense strength, growing further in size as the legate does a turn, throwing out his blade. It raking against Deku's arm and piercing into it. Him bringing his arm down and grabbing onto the man's hands. Before he does a bring up his claws and pull the man up into the air. Him pulling his right hand back and smashing into the man's armor as he does a throw at his feet, trying to kick it out at Deku. And Deku does hold up the legate. Right now, his armor being ripped off of his torso and going to fall to the sand. And the legate, he does go to throw his head downwards, trying to allow the spiked beard of his helmet to smash into Deku's arm. Though he also tries to kick the blade further and further into Deku's forearm, hoping that it will weaken him. And he does hear the Legion roar out for the legate to fight. Right now, him bringing his hands up and slashing his claws against the legate's torso, putting more and more strength down into the man's hands. Him feeling bones beginning to crack under the pressure. However, he does throw the legate upwards into the air, smashing him down into the ground. The legate, he does lay there on the ground on the sand, trying to get up and feeling the blood pooling into the sand pouring into his wounds as the man does get back to his feet. His hands, some of his fingers are broken, and the bones in his wrist, he can feel them creaking when he does try to flex his fingers. Him looking down at his torso and finding blood, though he does go to look up and see Deku, who does bring up his giant Deathclaw hand and pull his sword directly from the forearm. Him roaring out at the legate. And he does go to turn, chucking it to the side. The man confuses Deku, does smash his hands down and roar out at the man. And he can almost see the grin that would make its way across Deku's face. No weapons. And the legate, he does want to respect that. He can see how the man wants to have a proper battle. He won't win by using the blades of an enemy. He wants to disembowel him with his own claws. A primal predator. He can respect that. A true battle of strength, as the god of war would dictate. Might, him bolting forwards, versus might. And the legate, he does come running in. Deku throwing out his claws to try and scrape against the man's torso again. Though he does go to lunge to the left and throw his right hand out, or throw his left hand out, trying to smash his arm directly across Deku's elbow, hoping to do something. And whenever he does smash his body weight directly down into his forearm, he's hoping to hear a dislocation. Though Deku, he does take the blow and go to turn, bring up his left arm and slashing out, the man jumping backwards and then coming forwards. Him trying to get in close and going to turn, throwing out a right hand. Him feeling the pain shoot through his hands as he does go to smash directly into Deku's right leg. And Deku, he does feel his knee try to give out the other way, though he does go to shift his weight and go to turn. Right now, him going to allow his body to shift when he does it a move, and his body does go to try and punch into the Lanius. The man having to back away and try to get out from underneath Deku. Right now, him falling to the sand and scurrying away, as he does at a turn and go coming in again. And people do to watch this. The legate is trying to use what agility his size does have. And Deku, he is allowing the legate to try an actual attempt. He is sending out serious slashes and attacks at the man, though this superior bulk does reduce his speed. And the two, they do continue their battle. Deku, he does get punches and strikes against the legate. Or the legate does get punches and strikes against Deku. Deku, he does being aware of the man down with his claws, slashing and attacking him. And there is even more Deku, he does reduce his size to around 12 feet. And when the legate does see Deku shrinking down, he thinks that he's turning back into a man. Though Deku, he does go to stay at that size and stare at the legate, who is about a little over half Deku's size. Or Deku is a little over half the legate's size. There we go. God, my brain. Now, the legate, he does go rushing forwards, hoping to finish the fight. Hoping that if he can do much. Right now, he doesn't have a lot of options. He could request a blade. He could try to take one of Deku's fingers. But he's not sure if that would help. He does have one option, and he doesn't like it. Right now, him coming in and bringing up his helmet. Him ripping it from his head and going to smash the spikes of the bearded armor directly into Deku's chest. And Deku, he does feel these smash into him. Right now, him throwing his weight down and smashing the bottom of his shin directly into the legate's back. And the man, he does it a fall. Deku pulling the helmet free from his stomach and going to smash it into the dirt. Bringing his hands down and grabbing the legate by his neck, pulling him up into the air. And whenever he does to do so, he does go to glare at the burned man's face. The man who does have a mutilated, and he does mean that literally, expression. He looks horrible. And Deku, he does go to throw this man up in the air, staring at him. Him still dangling and trying to kick out towards Deku. Though Deku, he does go to bring his hands up and smash his claws into the legate's stomach. Right now the legate roaring out in pain and trying to bite and claw at Deku's hand. Trying to fight. And Deku, he does go to sink his claws deeper and deeper, then punching through as he does a let go and hold the legate up into the air. Blood running down his arm and going to spill into the sand. And he does go to throw this man's body down into the dirt. And the Legion, they do it to fall silent, watching as this man, he does lay there bleeding in the sand. And some do try to move forwards in order to help their legate, in order to help their boss. But Evelyn does try to bring him a hand. Some being sent flying backwards and back into the crowd. Others bring up weapons and being ready. And Deku, he does come stepping forwards with his massive claws, bring his foot up and smashing onto the man's chest, glaring down at him as he does lower his body and his head, staring at the man. And the man, he does stare back with a savage grin on his face, as Deku does get to put down the pressure that does end the legate's life. And when it starts to happen, Deku does get to raise his head to the Legion. Him glaring at many of them who do wish to rush forwards and fight. And he does go to roar out. They heard the legate. Retreat or die. Pick one. If they wish to do battle this day, their blood will spill across the sand. The legate fell. What chance do they have? And many of them, they do to stare. The Legion, it is in a bit of chaos. Without a leader or someone to give them proper orders, they don't know what to do. Some of the legionaries, they do begin to retreat. Others, they do stand there turning and angered by the retreating traitors of the Legion. Some, they do turn back and ready themselves for battle. And Deku, he does raise his head to the sky and roar out a mighty sound. The king of the Mojave, he does go to alert everybody. When that sound does go erupt across Hoover Dam, the mutants, they do begin to come in. The Legion, they do start the battle. And the mutants who are there behind Deku, they do start to change. Them rushing in and getting ready for their own fight. And the Legion, not only were they pushed back, they do begin to fall at Hoover Dam. The mutants, they do go to deploy themselves quickly. They come in hard, fast, and without mercy. The Scorch Beast took to the skies and immediately made sure the retreating force of the Legion are allowed to run. They are allowed to flee. They're well aware they won't be welcomed back to Legion territory very well, but they need those stories they tell to be told. The force that was left here, they are quickly beaten and murdered. They do quickly fall in combat. They're aggressive, relentless, fearsome in their own tactics. But the mutants, they have power. They have force. And they have just as much ruthlessness in their attacks as they do numbers and squads that they coordinate with. And that does mean much. A little over an hour. General Oliver, he had it timed. The moment he had heard that roar, he listened to what would happen afterwards. There was gunfire, explosions, and screams and roars. All of it coming from the Legion camp. And the man, he heard it die down. He heard 20 minutes pass without a gunshot. Then 30. Then an hour. It was only after then that he decided to go and investigate. Go see exactly what the hell happened. Him and his forces went to advance. They encountered nothing until they walked directly in to the Legion camp and found Deku. There he was, sitting on an ever-growing pile of corpses, all bearing Legion armor. Though there was the fact that there was a lot of other people running around the camp. And Deku, he didn't sit there. He does have the legates armor covering his torso. And he does go to sit with the legate's helmet right next to him. And it meant quite a bit. General Oliver and his forces, the moment they stepped into the encampment, they were greeted by a round of heads turning and people mutating. Right now, him watching as a Deathclaw does begin to walk forwards behind the pile. And Deku, he turned and growled, the person lowering their head as they did go to back away. And Deku, he did go to wave a hand up for the man to approach. I'm General Oliver of the NCR. You must be, Izuku Midoriya, the demon. I have been called that before, yes. And you are Oliver. Tell me, what are the NCR's plans for the foreseeable future? Well, that is ultimately dependent on your goal here. Are you planning to take the dam? No, our people don't have a use for the dam. We are, however, wary of the Legion, and their want of it. Are you now? So, I take it to mean that this is proof of our alliance? No, not proof of our alliance. We have a mutual enemy. An old world saying goes, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So you're saying the NCR is an enemy? The man's eyes narrowing. I never said that. Our factions may not find an allegiance, an alliance. Your goals are interesting, General, but my people don't like the Legion. We represent many things that they hate. Then again, we don't expect the Legion to try and make a move in the Mojave for a couple of years. We'd expect the same thing. When they do come back, they'll be in greater forces. I highly doubt that. They have to deal with their own problems in their own territory. What do you mean? We dropped a nuclear device on Flagstaff, Arizona, a Legion city. Population was said to be in the hundreds of thousands. Tens of thousands, if I'm right. I'm not sure. But they had quite a lot of area nearby. It was quite a popular city in my time adventuring, wastelanding. We avoided it, and we were even hunted by some people from there. But we blew it up. You did? You dropped a device on Flagstaff? We did, in fact. I gave the orders, and it should have been dropped either yesterday or earlier this morning. Now, I do hope you understand, General. Our people don't mean any harm to the NCR or their goals in the Mojave. But we may not be selling you resources. Or if we do, it'll be in a limited capacity for what we can have for your ranks. Your people can't sustain themselves as a separate entity of the Mojave. Thinking of yourselves as that is a bad idea. Right now, you and the NCR, as they are here, aren't the same as the NCR over there. Your territory is changing. And if you can't hold the territory or the region, we fear that you may become a raider gang. That's preposterous. We wouldn't fall back to that. Can you really say? A number of my people here, they've been through challenges in the wasteland, eradicating threats. We know what it's like up here. Some of us know how it does change them. I myself know the game of survival, what you're willing to do to stay alive, how far some are willing to go. If I don't believe you, understand. I'm not saying you're full of shit, but you could be a potential problem for us in the future. The Mojave is our territory. We're willing to share it, but if you become problematic in it, then you will become our problem. Are you threatening me in the NCR? No, General. I'm threatening problem makers, trouble makers, people who will break the rules we begin to set. Your people have spent a decade trying to take Hoover Dam. We took it in a simple campaign. Less than 100 men and women fighting. Less bloodshed than you think. How many people and how many bodies do you think it took your faction? This isn't over. Actually, General, I think it is. Our people don't want the dam. You do. You have the dam. But I will ask you a question. At what point are you going to get off of a sinking ship? At what point do you think retreating is your best option? We won't retreat. I won't disobey orders. So you're willing to die for your orders. And that's not a good thing. Deku going to stand and watches the people do get a tense up. Him talking about it. He's just going to order a retreat. Him turning and whistling. Him doing so twice quite loudly. And everyone, they do go to pack things up and begin to leave. Weapons are taken. And people, they just gotta stare on. They're really just going to leave the dam to the NCR. In this, it does make General Oliver question a number of things. I mean, if what he's saying is true, they're not a threat to them. They have enough supplies to sustain themselves and do what they will. They might be shit. Then the man's mind, wondering if this campaign is even worth it. If the NCR is falling apart and the Mojave disbanding it and trying to live among the locals might be something they need to do. Then again, they can't lose face whenever it does come to the Mojave. If they do, all of their efforts and all the people who have died will be for nothing. It's a big problem. It's a very bad problem. And there is Vault 16. They do hear about the Legion's retreat. They may send people in the future to go and investigate them. Right now, however, they do have other goals in mind. They do go to deploy the second GEC, making sure that whenever it does start changing the Mojave, it will be for the better. And right now, it is deployed near Red Rock Canyon. The tourist building, it does still stand. And that small little farm, that small little place where there used to be so many bighorners, it is where they deploy the GEC. A lot of the cons were wary of it. Though the moment that thing was deployed and started raining again, they roared out in victory. They roared out with just fury. They started to have their fun. The two GECs started reacting to each other, and for the next couple weeks, it rained. It rained and rained and rained on and off again. Sometimes it would rain for days straight. Sometimes there would just be times where nothing in the Mojave happened. The NCR themselves, they felt the rain very harshly. They were meant for dry, harsh conditions. And the massive change that does start to come in the upcoming months does start to wear them down. Eventually, things don't go well for them. The NCR military, they do start to have their own people begin to retreat. Those who do stay because Vegas has become a place they feel comfortable. They start becoming part of the locals. They stop their fighting. Mr. House, he does rule Vegas. While there are some problems left, it does mean much. President Kimball, he was not happy. The campaign into the Mojave bared very little fruit. It became a strain on their resources to try and bring more people in and continue to fund this campaign. It became a mark in history he could not get off of his political record. Many of the NCR forces disbanded, started living in the Mojave, and discovering that it became a very good place for them. The Vault Dwellers of Vault 16. A number of people mutated. There were talks about it. They focused on their outward expansion into Camp Searchlight. A proper city was built. And with the fact that they do have that cold fusion power from the Enclave, more mutants started waking up. Some people were horrified, discovering themselves back in the land of the living. Some, they adjusted well. Others didn't. Some were too dangerous to allow to live, too far in their animalistic ways to survive. It meant a number of deaths, but the mutants, they were awoken. allowed back into the general population after observation, and they were allowed to try and heal, allowed to discover the new world they find themselves in. It does mean much. Vegas is under Mr. House's direct rule. With the Mark II Securitrons up and running, it has become safer. There is the fact that the Strip did have a number of problems arise thanks to the Omertas, but they were quickly dealt with by the Securitrons and members of Vault 16 at their embassy. Courier 6, he does enjoy his time at the tops. He is the head chairman. He does have quite a number of benefits from allying himself from members of the Vault 16. He's got plenty of money and plenty of power, a secure position, and a number of funds to live a life of luxury. And there is currently the Legion. The Legion's fall at Hoover Dam and their retreat, it left a stain in the annals of their history. A number of stories were said about what happened. Flagstaff, Arizona was destroyed. The Legion forces were pushed back. Lord Kaiser was killed. Then the legates Lineate was murdered in a barehanded fight at the dam by the Deathclaw Man. A man who can change shape into a beast. A man who leads people who do this as well. The horrors of the West. And the Legion, they do start to retreat back eastward, well aware that Arizona is lost after the massive strike that they took. Many people do try to live their lives out there, but the harsher environment, it does deter many. And time will only tell what will happen next. Now, we do currently have Deku. Deku does have a lot he has to deal with. Today they're hunting down prey. Today, he's teaching quite a number of things. And he does it to keep his body low. The Mojave has grown into the Gek. The land turned to dirt, and that dirt turned into grass. The oasis, that's what they've begun to call it, formerly known as Vegas. A place where it does rain and where water, it's become plentiful. They have taken out a number of threats in the Mojave. They've let some of the wildlife stay wild, though they have introduced a number of other things from their vault in order to try and help create a proper ecosystem. And while that ecosystem may have started to try and run a little out of control, they have been helping it shift back to a natural order. Though man, or I guess in this case mutant, does have its own part to play in said order. And right now Deku, he does go to keep himself low to the ground and make sure things are easy. He does it a hold of a bow. He does have his arrows at his waist and something on his back. And he does get to talk about it, currently overlooking a hill and expressing about what they're going to be doing. They're going to take out some of the big corner here and hopefully take it back home to Vegas. Take it back home to the vault. That is Vegas, not too far away, over the hill. It is quite an interesting place, and one of his friends does live there. Though, he is a little annoying sometimes. The person going to nod their head as Deku does look around the group of people. And right now he does hear a sound emanate from his back. Hey, I'm talking about it. They've got to keep things a little bit more easy. Though, do they think that they can all handle it? Mary? I got it, Dad. Really? Jane? I should be able to get it. It shouldn't be that bad. Okay. Connor, do you and. Yes, Dad, we should be able to get it. It shouldn't be able to outrun us. Are we going to chase it down? Well, that does depend. Him holding up the bow and arrow, talking about it. Who wants to fire an arrow? Right now, he needs to make sure that Ashley isn't fussing. And they do to nod their heads. And Deku does it to hand it off. An arrow drawn in a big corner down the hill migrating. It should mean quite a bit. And he does hear the sound of the creature having life taken. Them heading down and harvesting the meat. And he does start going over quite a few lessons, using Chance's knife, gutting the big corner and taking massive strips of meat that he does go to set aside and wrap with the specialized equipment they've taken. And there is where he does talk about it. They can do a lot of things here. They can turn a lot of this meat into some paste, or he can show them about how to make some blood sausages. They're going to need quite a few of the intestines here. These over here, you don't want to take. They're a little too far into the creatures, so they're full of, well, the nasty bits. Just go ahead and this is the safe point, but you always kind of want to go a little further up, and him going to pull it up, giving it a whiff and talking about it. Right, that does mean that they're good. Though, him going to look up when he does hear a noise, and a death claw, it does slowly begin to approach. Deku going to stand and go to turn to the creature. As he does take a slab of the meat and go to toss it against the ground. The creature coming up and going to stare at the group. Then Deku, he does continue to go back to work. The creature looking on and taking the piece of meat that was offered, stabbing into it and bringing it up to chew in its massive teeth. And the others, they do just get to stare on. Deku going to stand after taking a bit more of the meat. And he does go to turn. Him growling out to the creature and going to snarl. The creature going to hear Deku click his tongue as he does go to gesture down. Him going to nudge with his foot the beast. And it does go to approach after Deku does go to back away. And it does begin to take some of the remnants of the beast. Deku makes sure to take quite a lot of hide. He made sure to take quite a lot of meat. And he does begin the trek back to Camp Searchlight. It's not too far away, though he does enjoy the run. His hair does get to feel the nice cool wind. And that smell on the wind does tell him it might either rain or snow soon. And that it will be interesting. It snowed last year. And it snowed the year before. He's wondering how things outside the Mojave have been. There's been no activity from the Legion from what they've heard. They've sent a team out a few months ago to check it out, and they do have a team currently stationed across Hoover Dam. The NCR, they went into retreat. Some of them fell into raider gangs, which had to be dealt with. Some went to the locals, trying to adapt and blend in. They weren't received well, but over time, with the efforts they're using to help try to rebuild Freeside, things have gotten better. There are still some problems. Raider gangs that do make their way in, but they're quickly being dealt with by their own people. After everything happened, the older generation has started somewhat reluctantly mutating, and they found the results to be quite interesting. The effects of old age do begin to fade, and their bodies do progressively get healthier and healthier. Him going to walk into his home and talk about a few things, rinsing off the blood from his hands and going to smile, pulling his child off of his back from the makeshift harness that was made. Him going to walk over and hang it onto a wall, grabbing the child inside and going to let them off and onto the ground to explore. And when he does do that, he does a turn. Him going to see Marcy and Chloe talking to quite a few people, asking if they have things for the little ones. He's going to take the kids outside. And when he does that, he's going to teach them how to grill a few different things. Walking over to the fridge, pulling it open, and grabbing a few other ingredients. Though he's also going to teach them how to dry out the hide, and how to make some warm clothes. Any request? Them going to somewhat chuckle and talk about it. They're fine over here, though if he is going to be making some food, make a lot. There's some stuff in the fridge they still need to get rid of. Right. And you, Miss Stevens? I'm sure you've been busy. I have. Victor is helping to look after the little ones. Though, not a surprise. I'm guessing you guys already have been planning for more? A little bit. That obvious? I can smell it. The nose doesn't lie. Him giving her a grin. She does it to roll her eyes, talking about it. Well, his nose is full of shit. She isn't pregnant. They've already got quite a few little ones running around. Then again, it's nothing compared to theirs. Is he sure he didn't put another bun in someone's oven? Her turning her head at the two women. And Deku, he does go to smell the air again and step forwards. Before he's a turn looking around the room. And he does go to turn to Erica. Congratulations. Wait, me? But my husband's... Oh my god. I have to go talk to him. Her jumping up as the others, they do go to let out a small cheer. And she has to run off with her tail, literally wagging so hard. And it does a smack against the door on her way out. Deku turning and raising an eyebrow. Is her husband human? Yup. Good for them. Yeah. Good for them. Though, I bet you're relieved not to have another little one. You already have a dozen running around. We don't have a dozen. A baker's dozen? No, Tracy. It's 11 kids. It's not that bad. That's more than most people in the vault typically have. Well, more than the mutants so far typically have. I know. Listen, if I'm interrupting all of you, I can just go. I gotta go talk to the kids about going to grill. Though, him stepping forwards and going to reach a hand out. Going to take his daughter and go to pull her up. Talking about it. He hasn't seen her since this morning. She does look a little happy. Though, where's she's down for a nap? Right. I gotta go. Him going to walk back over and grab a few things. Him making his way over to the door and yelling for some help from the kids. And they do come running inside to lend their father a hand. And he does start the lesson. Him going to walk over and sit down by an empty campfire. He does prefer to keep things a little bit more tribal. A lot of mutants have taken to that way. High-tech stuff isn't bad, but whenever you do start to connect a bit more with that part of yourself, you do want to feel a bit more like nature. I mean, he stopped wearing leather boots or anything like that of the sort. His feet just like the way the sand and soil under his feet do feel. And he hasn't gone back. Though he does just stare at Connor, who does attempt to try and light a campfire. And he does go to raise an eyebrow talking about it. Seems like someone hasn't been practicing. Whatever, Dad. Well, we're doing this. Could you talk about one of your stories? Sure. Where to talk about? Want to hear about the time I took out a number of death claws a while back? Long, long time ago. You've told that one before. Yeah, tell us something new. How about the spaceship that gave me the scar? Sure, Dad. Like that happened? Okay, fine. Have I ever told you all the story about me getting in touch with my other side? You have, and you say you don't mention certain things about that story. The giant flaming bear was something I don't believe. Well, it was real. It wasn't just because I took something special to make me see it. It was a spirit from the other side that I fought. I've seen a number of things out there you kids wouldn't believe. Sure, Dad. Okay. What's a story I haven't told you all? I've told you all about the Enclave. I've told you all about that one. Okay. I have a good idea for a story. So, it was about. What was it? Yeah, okay. It was about 9 years ago. You were all still really little at the time. It's about the day we took Hoover Dam. And about that helmet we have up in the mantle. Deku going on. And his kids, they do get the fire going. Him going to occasionally stop and go to raise an eyebrow at some of the things they are trying to add to a pot of stew they're beginning to make. Some do have the meat set aside to grill it. Some are trying to make a different thing. And he does get to turn to both groups and just go to look at them both. As he does continue his tale. Right now, it does go on and on. Eventually, it falling down to him talking to a man of the NCR, some sort of old military, and they talk about a number of things. Some people do get to wander over, and Deku does get a turn, noticing that some of the younger children are watching him tell the tale. And it does make him grin. Continuing on, and even going on to the retreat. The men there, they lasted a couple of months. Though, eventually, the NCR broke down. One particularly heavy rainstorm one day, one that was so bad, they thought it was going to take down this camp. It led to them retreating. It led to the old building over there falling over and them having to rebuild. Though they're really lucky that it did fall over that day. Otherwise, they may have learned later on that it was going to be unstable. Though, he's a little concerned about the spices that they're adding to that. Huh? Oh, is this not enough? I'm not sure. What do you think? Do you really think that those will pair well together? Hmm. No? Deku going to grin. And right now, there is where Damien, he does it to set down the onion and go to turn, looking at a number of other things. And he does it to talk about it. A lot of people died that day during the battle. A lot of people died before that too. Though, he did learn a number of things. Pouring some stew into a bowl, going to stir it, and go to talk about it, taking a brief sip and going to nod his head about how the war that destroyed the world centuries ago, it started with bombs and ended there. And it was about not having enough things to get by. They're lucky that the old world provided them a bounty, and they have been maintaining it. They used some of the resources from the old world to destroy the Legion and push them back. They may come back one day, and war will start again. But the pattern may repeat itself. They're ready if the Legion does try again. They've learned lessons last time. And their people, they've been through the hardship of the surface. This story is a little bit more violent. But he does want them to understand. War only has survivors. The people who survive the bombs. The people who survive fights. War is brutal. War has innocence. But that's another story for another time. He does want them all to understand. War never changes. Now, with that being said, I do hope you guys enjoyed. Have an amazing day. Catch you guys in the next series. This one I've loved doing. It is my favorite video game, and I am quite happy to do a series based on it. Hopefully, to introduce a number of you guys to the universe, and even throw more attention its way and love its direction. For those who have stuck around this long, sorry about delaying the story just a little bit. But I'm happy to have taken this journey with you all. Now, I'll go ahead and get out of your guys' hair. Have a good night.